part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Sabol.
And I'm John Sabol. Thanks for tuning in right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Thank you for all you that have subscribed on Apple and on Spotify.
Joining us today on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline Podcast, by the way, it's a first for us, an Olympic athlete. She specializes in the pole vault. She won gold at the 2020 Summer Olympics in women's pole vault, among other accolades, too numerous to mention here, and maybe we'll get to them later on. Please welcome Northeastern Ohio's own Katie Nageotte. Katie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. You're from Olmsted Falls, suburb of Cleveland, is that right?
Yes, I am.
All right, so describe your town, those of our listeners who aren't from Northeastern Ohio, and because we're all from Northeastern Ohio, but describe your town, describe your family, describe your growing up.
Yeah, it was honestly, I feel like kind of, I guess, conceited saying this, but it was picture perfect. Like, it was just an awesome middle-class suburb. Like, it really was a wonderful place to grow up. I feel very spoiled in the sense of like, it was just a wonderful community to be a part of. Everyone knew everyone. It just had such a good feel to it. And growing up, I got to play all different kinds of sports, and that was supported by everyone, the teachers, the community, your parents, and so it really was just a place where I felt like you could thrive as a kid and whatever you wanted to do. And so I'm really proud to be from Olmsted Falls because it was it's such a huge part of who I am. And I started pole vault in the 7th grade, and Olmsted Falls was wonderful in supporting that, and I felt that throughout my entire career. So yeah.
How did you get involved with pole vaulting? I mean, we hear about all the other sports like basketball, soccer, kids grow up with it from kindergarten on, but pole vaulting that's something that, how do you know you're good at it? Is it just one day it's, I want to try this and then the sky's the limit?
Yeah, I saw the high schoolers doing it and knew I needed to try it. I always loved anything daredevilish. I grew up doing gymnastics and any sport I wanted to try, I got to, which was awesome. But I was really big into the adrenaline sports. And so I saw the high schoolers doing it when we went out to track practice and knew I had to try it.
So Katie, I was read a lot about your high school career, and being a Northeastern Ohio native, we hear a lot about you, obviously, with your journey to the Olympics and then to all the nationals that you participate in. But when you were at Olmsted Falls, not only were you a state champion in pole vaulting, but did I read this correctly? You also played, you were on the golf team, you were in the swimming and diving. Like, how many letters did you rack up in those sports in addition to pole vaulting?
It's a little bittersweet because I got 11 and you can get 12, but I didn't get one my freshman year in golf. So that's always been a little bittersweet to me. But yeah, I got 11 letters, which was awesome. It was so cool. And I intentionally chose the sports that I had a better chance of lettering in. I don't know. Right. The individual sports always seemed to work better. And I knew if I went for basketball and soccer, I'd be on, freshman JV. I couldn't letter. And
so obviously pole vaulting, was your number one sport. But after that, were you a better golfer or better swimmer and diver?
Oh, I'd say they're pretty even. I think I'm a little bit better at diving, not swimming, but diving. I did get a little bit of recruitment for. I think I might have gotten one letter for golf. I will say I'm probably better at golf now that I'm all done, and it's just more like going out to play for fun rather than serious. But I probably diving. I would say I was probably a little bit better at diving.
So after Olmsted Falls, you went to Dayton and then ultimately transferred to Ashland, where you really excelled. Why did you transfer from Dayton to a smaller school in Ashland? What was the thought process there?
I really struggled at Dayton, and Dayton was Division I. And so I almost didn't feel like I should go to another D1 school in the mindset that I was in, I was really struggling mentally. I had a really bad mental block where I just couldn't even get off the ground. And I almost felt like I didn't deserve to go to another D1 school at that point. But also I had friends that went to Ashland. I always liked the track coaches when I spoke with them. They had just built this new facility. It was an hour from home. And so it really just, I kind of got that feel like, okay, this is where I should go. It was just this gut feeling of, yeah, go here. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, it all worked out, but it's like that feeling, something you may not quite describe, but you know it's the right move type of thing.
Yep, absolutely. It was just a gut feeling of, this is where I need to be. This is where I'm going to do as best as I can.
So at what point when you were in college, did you think, okay, you know what, I can take this to the next level? Could this be the Olympics? Describe the process, or maybe the better word is the journey for you, because I know there's a lot of college athletes out there, that once they're done with college, that's it. But how do you know when there's that next level right around the corner?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my mom kept saying, stop buying athletic clothes. This is, you're not going to be an athlete for much longer. And this is when I was in college. So it's like, see, now I get free athletic clothes. It all comes around. No, I think for me, when I fully realized it, I'd always wanted that. And I always knew I wanted to keep pole vaulting as long as possible. But when I qualified for U.S. nationals my senior year, and then placed kind of middle of the pack there with the best athletes, not just in the U.S., but these are the best women in the world. And if I was placing 5th or 6th and the top 3 go to worlds, it was kind of like, okay, like I deserve to be here. And there's a lot more that we can improve upon. So yeah, I think that was really when it hit me that I can continue on. But it was always, I think I was a little delusional and naive and, oh yeah, of course I can get there. And, thankfully that's how it worked out. But
before, I guess you could say, was it before the Olympics you had COVID? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would have been 2020. So you had, which completely screwed up your training, I'm sure.
Yeah. So for me, I got it in December and I thought I came off of it fine because physically I felt okay, but I had a really bad, I guess like brain fog is the best way I can describe it, where I just had no reaction time. I couldn't process information quickly. I couldn't. And when you come into the pole vault, you're running on the runway full speed and it's this split second impulse decision. You punch your hands up and I just couldn't do anything quickly. I couldn't process it quickly to then make that move. It was like I couldn't see the takeoff, and it wasn't a vision thing. It was just a processing the information and a reaction time. So that stuck with me for several months. I think around April is when I started to feel better, but it was a very unsettling, few months of just not knowing if this was ever going to go away because it was so new. No one really knew anything about it and knew what the lingering effects were going to be. And so, yeah, it was very stressful. Thankfully, I did come out of that, but I went to a concussion clinic because they said everything I was describing was like a post-concussion, protocol. And I do think that helped a lot. So, but I was trying everything.
I know your dad passed away suddenly when you were in high school. I think you were 16 years old, and you and your dad were very close. And I know you've been very open about this. But just for, our realm of thinking here, like, how did your dad passing impact your overall, like, high school, college, and eventually Olympic journey? I mean, that had to still to this day. I mean, he's not here, but he's here with you in a way. Right. And I know you think about him a lot.
Yeah, I think when it initially happened, some people tend to just not want to do the thing that you're that person and you bonded over. But for me, it was just this immediate, I have to do this for him. Like, I want to do this for him. And so, when I go through bad periods, it's like, I almost feel like, and I know this is not true, but you almost feel like, oh, I'm just like letting him down. And so it's like this, it's tied into everything that I do. And then when it goes well, obviously I'm so ecstatic that, it's like I'm doing this in the memory of him. But I know when I was when I was at the Olympics, and kind of the backstory of, I missed those first 2 attempts and it was very stressful. During the warm-ups, my quad was so tight, it just wouldn't loosen up. It kept grabbing and cramping. And I had never really experienced something like that before, because for me, once I started warming up, it would loosen up and go away. And I, knock on wood, have been pretty lucky with not having chronic injuries. If anything, I roll an ankle doing something stupid and then move on. But I distinctly remember being on the runway during warmups, and it's not loosening up and it's not loosening up. And I didn't have a good warmups, but I kind of like looked up at one point and I just said, okay, all right, Dad, I promise I won't ask for anything else the rest of this meet. I can handle it. Just please help this loosen up. Like if it's not my day, so be it. Like, but just, if you could just help this feel better, I will take care of the rest. I'm not going to ask you to help me clear bars. Just help this to feel my best. And so thankfully it did. It did go away by the end of warmups, but we all saw the effect of not having a good warm up. So at that first height.
So how long after were you basically saying that little prayer and talking to your dad? Did you feel better?
I would say it was like halfway through warm-ups that I said it, when I realized it wasn't going away. And then towards the end of warm-ups, it was like, okay, this is not going to be an issue. Wow. But now I just ruined my warm-ups. So
see your dad helping you out there.
I like to think so. Yeah.
Now, Katie, you honor your dad and your grandfather every meet. Tell our listeners how you do it and why it's just so important to you.
I tap the inside of my shoe. I write Dad on the inside of the sole on my left foot and Papa on the inside of my right shoe. And yeah, just before jumps, I'll tap it. And it's almost to a point now where that's just part of my like routine. And I do think of him. I'll say like, okay, Dad, let's go. But sometimes it's just even like, it's just so ingrained in my like ritual that it's like, oh yeah, this is like a real, like, it's like, sometimes I do it. And then other times I really think like, oh yeah, this is for my dad. Like,
very cool.
You were talking about failed attempts.
Yeah.
I know a lot of kids, they watch, highlights on ESPN and they see professional athletes and all they see are the highlights. They see that, which is maybe 1% or less of what actually goes on. They rarely see the failed attempts at whatever sport or whatever it is that professional athlete's doing.
Right.
When you have a failed attempt, is there a mental exercise that you do or have learned that gets you back on track again? Because there's so many young athletes who, if they screw up, that's it, and they just crumble, and it takes them a while to mature. Is there an exercise that you do or have learned?
So yes. And that's just focusing on my cues. I call them my cues, my execution points. It's like the thing I am trying to get my body to do this, this, and this as I'm coming down the runway. But that starts with practice. I started working with my new coach, Brad, in 2017. And that was something that he and I started working on immediately, because I never knew how to think on the runway. I would just run down, throw my hands up, kind of scatterbrained, hope for the best, going purely on adrenaline. And working with him, he taught me how to think on the runway. And it just comes down to who can tell their body what they want it to do. And I know that sounds easier said than done. And I keep telling him like, it's not that simple, but like it can be. But obviously when stress and anxiety come in, it's easy to just let that get the better of you. But I just really, every single jump, whether it's a practice or a meet, I am focusing and telling my body to do what I want it to do the same way every time. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I feel those nerves, and yes, I feel anxious, but telling myself what to do kind of keeps them at bay enough to get done what I want to get done.
So let's talk about the day you won the gold. Tell us about that day, the events leading up to it, and the time right after. Just you take it from here.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy year. I got COVID and had those lingering symptoms. And then when I started to feel better, I flew back from a competition and all of my poles snapped in half.
Oh,
and, yeah.
Jeez.
I went to baggage claim and just picked up one end and they bent in half, and it's not supposed to do that. So that was extremely stressful because I've had these poles since college, and you really build a trust with them. And so I actually ended up switching pole companies. I got to try several different brands as a result. And it honestly probably was a blessing in disguise, because these new poles, this new brand that I'm on is 100% the best fit for me. It's kind of like a golf club, finding the best fit for you. And these ones really are great for me. So I am in a weird way very thankful that happened. And then about 2 weeks before Tokyo, so the year is going well. I've jumped the world lead. I won the Olympic trials. I made the team, which is, the biggest dream other than winning the Olympics, you could ever have as a track athlete. And about 2 weeks before I left for Tokyo, I got horrible food poisoning that put me in the emergency room. And so it just, it's just kind of one thing after the next. And at that point, it's like, okay, what else? And, and so, I think by the time that I got there, I was just so happy to be there, so relieved that I hadn't tested positive for COVID again, because, we saw it with some athletes having to, getting all the way there and then being told, no, you can't compete. And I was just so happy that the stress was over and I just got to be there and jump. And so, yeah.
So I have 2 questions for you from that story. First off, your poles break in baggage claim.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Airlines got to cover you on that one, right?
They did. Yes. And that's
Good.
why I'm not calling them out, because really
Good.
they were great. I understand things happen. I don't understand how that happened, but
Right.
they're, human error, it happens. And they were really great about refunding them and taking care of it. So yeah, that was good.
Was that on the way there or on the way back?
On the way back.
Okay.
I competed in Cleveland, ironically enough.
Wow.
Fire.
So if that would have happened on the way there, like happened there, what would you have done?
I would have tried to borrow poles, but poles vary in length and stiffness, and they're so specific to everyone that even though you look at all of us and we're all jumping the same height, we're all on very different poles. I'm actually on much softer poles than Sandy Morris, who, she didn't have a great Tokyo, but she did great at Worlds this year. So it's very specific to you. And so you can try. And I think what was cool about, when my poles broke, I got to try these other brands. I got to show myself and the pole vault community that you can jump high on any brand, but there are some that are just going to be better fit for you. But you can jump high on anything you put in your hand if you just make it about doing what your cues, your execution points, like I said before, just telling the pole what you want it to do, so to say.
And you said you got food poisoning. What'd you eat?
I have no idea, because it seemed like it hit me a couple days later. I was in Paris and I had competed in Monaco, and I didn't have a great meet. I didn't necessarily feel all that bad, but I thought maybe it was just jet lag. I still ended up with a good result, but the competition was just a little off for me. And my coach even said afterwards, like, yeah, you didn't seem like you were moving quite as well. And then we had a layover in Paris for a day, and I really started to not feel great. And then when I came home, it was just, I was on the toilet more than I was for days. And I just didn't, I was just miserable. So it got to a point where
we'll blame the French cheese on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always like to ask these kind of like silly questions, but they're like legit questions that people may not think about. But I always wonder, when someone accomplishes something great, like you get a gold medal or a trophy or a jersey or something, where is Katie Nageotte's gold medal right now?
It's up on my dresser. It's just sitting on my dresser. I just look at it every morning.
Nice.
I don't think I should not own something this special, because I lose everything. I'm so nervous, but I'm not responsible enough to own something of this caliber. So it's just on my dresser.
Do you ever just put it on around the house, like vacuuming or anything?
No, but I heard that oh, it was an actress. I think it was Kate Winslet put her Oscar in the bathroom so that people could have their moment, like in the mirror of like,
Oh, that's cool.
I'd like to thank the Academy. So maybe I'm wondering if I should put my gold medal in the bathroom and give everybody their moment with it.
Well, it would have a connection with that food poisoning. So,
there,
wow.
there you go. Yeah.
so Katie, how do you motivate yourself after winning gold medal in the Olympics? I mean, you hit the peak, the precipice.
Yeah.
You've been there. What drives you? I mean, Scott and I were athletes growing up, never at the level of what you've done. But how do you motivate yourself? How do you focus on something else?
I really struggled with this past year. I mean, I just collapsed emotionally, mentally, physically. I've heard about post-Olympic depression, post-Olympic hangover, however you want to phrase it. And I've been training such a certain way my whole life that I never really thought, I just thought I could keep going. And I hit this emotional and mental kind of like rock bottom of just like, I can't muster up any ounce of motivation. It's like I don't care. And of course I care, but I remember being at my first competition and standing on the runway thinking this is going to be a long meet. And then I immediately thought, oh, this is going to be a long year. And I had never had that before. And I was like, uh-oh, I don't know what to do with this. And it really just, every meet kind of got worse and worse of just like, and I still knew somewhere in me I wanted to pole vault, at least I thought I did, but it's like I couldn't make my body care. I couldn't muster up that adrenaline. It was like my adrenal glands were just broken and would not like switch on for anything. And it was a really tough year. I did well indoors, and then I got COVID again right before outdoors. And I think I experienced a lot of what I went through that first time as well. So it was this combination of, kind of dealing with the brain fog and that, but then compounded with this feeling of not wanting to be there. And, when it came to weightlifting, when it came to track sessions, I could go fine, but pole vaulting is just one of those things where you can't just go 50%. Every time you come down the runway, it's 100% maximum effort. Even if you're running from a short approach or a longer approach, even if you're doing drills, it's like everything you do has the same level of intensity. And I've had some mental block issues with it before. And so then when you take away the urgency of the Olympics, of I have to do this if I want to make this team, that's been my sole focus and motivation for pretty much my entire life. And without that, it was, I just didn't know how to navigate it. And so I said to myself, if I continue to feel this way throughout the entire year, if I can't even muster it up at USA's to make worlds outdoors, then that's my sign. I'm 31, and I didn't know if it was just, I accomplished this big goal. Yes, I have other goals. I've attempted the world record and the American record. I would love to break those. But the Olympics just had such a different weight to it to me. And people had asked, would you rather break the world record or win the Olympics? And I never knew the answer to that. And then winning the Olympics kind of told me, which I still want to break records, but it's just a little different having to completely flip that and have that same level of intense inner motivation. It's hard to describe, but I said if I couldn't get it together by the end of the year, I'm 31, I'm getting married, I've done this big thing, like maybe this is just my sign. But I did. It was still in me somewhere, and I ended up having a great meet at Worlds, and I took 6 weeks off completely, like doing nothing pole vault related, and I feel so different coming into this year. I feel excited and motivated again, and it just took time. I just needed a break, I think.
So you're still training for the next Olympics.
Yes.
Right? So would you think this could be, knowing what you want to do in your personal life and your age, this will probably be your last one?
It'll definitely be my last Olympics. Well, I say that.
Right.
For some reason, things just continue to get better and better for me at the age of, 30, gosh, what will I be? 37? Then maybe. But as of right now, it's like, my plan is definitely to go through 2024. And if that goes well, 2025 World Championships are in Tokyo. And I think it'd be awesome to kind of bring my career full circle and maybe end it there. And so few people get to go out on their own terms. I mean, so few people have the career of, Allison Felix, like winning a gold medal and calling it, or Kara Winger, getting a medal. She's the javelin thrower that in her final year, she medaled at Worlds and like had the best year of her life. And then, so few people get to do that. And most people leave on injuries or, just getting older and can't hack it. And I hate saying that because they were phenomenal all
right.
Around, but I don't want to get to that point of like, oh, just one more year to see if I can do it again. One more year to see. And then you're just like, it's just kind of this downward hill.
You have to figure though, that going through all the mental struggles, in recently here, you're taking everything you learned from that, and you got to be, now you know how to apply all of that to what's upcoming in the next several years. Is there any specific technique that you learned, or techniques in focusing in the off season like that, trying so you don't get that quote unquote depression?
Yeah, I think it really was just stepping away from it completely, like getting a full break, because after the Olympics, it was amazing. I had the coolest experiences, but everything that I did was centered around the Olympics, and I wasn't mad about it. It was, I got to relive, the best day of my life over and over again. But then when I got started, I didn't realize how tired I was. And I usually the off season is not just a physical break, but a mental and emotional break. And so I think just knowing that I got away from that, and then part of it too is I've been away from my family for years, and my fiance, he and I have lived at a distance most of our relationship, and so my coach and I actually had a good conversation about, he was just basically asking me, I can see how much you have left to give in the sport, and I want to know how much I can push you, because I don't want to push you more than you want to be. I said, I still want this. I wouldn't be here if I didn't, but I need to know that I can go see the people that I love often. Like, I need to be able to kind of have like a schedule of like, I need to go be with Hugo, and I need to go. So, we kind of worked out a schedule where like every rest week, I'm going to go be with him for the full week. And it's just, even just having that and knowing, pole vault was the center of my world for so long, and I sacrificed a lot for that. And I think it just needs to shift a little bit, where it's this awesome thing I get to do. I have learned so many, fundamental, like the foundation from my coach. And now I'm having a good preseason basically in one place here with my coach. And then as I travel, I can do more. I can still train the way I need to, but do it at a distance. And so I think it's just realizing that I want, not that I want these other things, but it's just, I'm realizing like, I'm at a point in my life where
reprioritizing.
Yeah. I just, at the end of my life, I want to look back and say that, yeah, I gave pole vault everything I had, but it didn't keep me away from the people that I care about the most. And so I just wanted to know that I was going to have a balance of that this year. And I do. So I think that's part of why I'm just excited about it.
Did you do anything fun in your 6-8 weeks off? Just something like that, bowling, something like that.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm getting married New Year's Eve. So a lot of it was wedding stuff. I just had my bridal shower. I just went to my bachelorette party. I did a couple girls trips. Hugo and he just got a job in Tulsa at University of Tulsa as one of the rowing coaches. And so we bought a house and we got to go house hunting. And so it was just a lot of relaxing, but being with family and friends.
We'll have more from Katie Nageotte right after this.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen. Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
So I've always heard stories about this, and I wanted to see if there's anything that you could shed some light on it. Of course, you can be careful on what you say. And you're probably thinking, what is John going to say?
Yeah.
We've always heard rumors about the Olympic Village and the parties that go on there.
With COVID, it just wasn't a thing. Or
Really?
if it was, I didn't see it because
Because of COVID, probably?
And I'm sure there was stuff going on. I was oblivious to it. I was in the common room area and then just up in my room, but they were really strict about where we could go. I mean, we had to double mask even outside. Anywhere you went in the village, you had to be double masked. They really didn't let athletes from other countries into other countries' dorms. It was very, so there might have been some things going on that I just didn't see, but I didn't notice any of that this year because I've heard it too. And of course my fiance heard it too and was like, great.
Well, you know what? This next Olympics, you'll hopefully be able to experience that. And then you can report back about the parties and then maybe somehow you can sneak Scott and I in there.
Fingers crossed I'll get to compare it to something.
Yeah.
So explain to us your training regimens and diet. I know there's a lot that go into that, but explain to us, has it changed at all in the last 10 years since college?
Yes. Yeah. Everything I do now is just so much more centered towards pole vault. So pole vault specific, and in college it was more generalized, I would say. And so we lift 3 times a week. I vault twice a week. I do sprint sessions. But I also have rest days. So we'll alternate a hard day and a rest day. So for example, like Monday will be a vault session and then a lift. And then Tuesday will be easy, like a bike and a stretch. And then Wednesday will be sprints and a lift. Thursday will be off completely for therapy. Friday, a vault and a lift. Saturday, sometimes off. Sometimes we have longer runs to just like longer sprints, I should say, like 120s. And then Sunday is off completely. So I really like that balance of go hard, rest, because it's physically, it's better on the body. I think it's nice to just have a day in between every day, but then also emotionally, I can give more in the session knowing the next day I have off. And then as far as my diet, I used to be crazy strict. Too strict, and I was way too lean and it wasn't good. I didn't have a lot of energy because I thought, okay, I have to look a certain way. I have to be super lean if I want to achieve these results, instead of just fueling myself to have energy. And then the body's just kind of a side effect of that. I just had that flip-flopped. And so I really just try to get good quality food. Although now I just was diagnosed with celiac disease a week ago. So I have to go completely gluten-free. So let me just say, before that, it was like, I just would eat every couple hours. I would make sure it was good protein carb combination. So it could be pasta and chicken. It could be oatmeal and eggs. It could be Greek yogurt and cereal. I just try to make sure I'm getting with, veggies, fruits, healthy fats. Well, I mean, I'd eat bacon. Like it just, I'm not super strict, just making sure I'm hitting like those, I call them my 4 food groups, where it's just protein, carbs, healthy, like fats, and fruits and veggies. So as long as I'm getting a balanced version of that, then that's good. I try to eat an hour and a half before I work out so that it's mostly digested, but I'm still getting the energy from it. So yeah.
So Katie, are you like concerned? Are you curious to see how the celiac disease can impact your training now for the Olympics coming up here, and how you prepare and working out and diet and all that?
Yeah, I think my brother has had celiac, and I have gotten to watch him kind of go through it, and he was really sick. I didn't know I had it. I got tested. I went in for something unrelated, and they're like, "Oh, your brother's celiac. Let's do this test and just see." And then I, of course, turned positive for it. So I think they call that silent celiac, which is even more frustrating because with him, he knew he was sick. I mean, you could see it, and his skin was almost like a grayish color. He was so lean. He had just a lot of digestive issues. And so for him, it's like, okay, I'm making the switch to feel better. And whereas I'm like, no. But I think I'm excited knowing that, okay, I wasn't retaining the nutrients that my body should be, and I was doing that well in my sport. Like if I actually change my diet to where I can absorb the nutrients, can I be that much better? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Right.
But luckily a lot of what I eat is gluten-free anyways. It's just more of the cross-contamination. Like I bought whole new plates, pots, pans, all that good stuff.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You wouldn't think about that, but
Right.
that can do it.
Yeah. For me, I think it's the going out to eat that's going to make me the most sad, because a lot of places, it's much more common now. And thankfully, it was kind of a fad diet for a while. So there are much better tasting options. There's a lot of restaurants that accommodate it. But, just things like it should be on different plates with different, silverware. But a lot of places don't cater to that degree. So it's going to be a lifestyle change for sure. My poor fiance will have to go gluten-free too, whether he likes it or not. So.
Any young athletes listening to this, boy or girl, what do you hope that they learn from your story and how successful you've been, whether it's in athletics or any type of adversity that they overcome?
Yeah, I mean, my career has been a literal roller coaster of ups and downs. And so as long as you just keep getting back up and you're ultimately enjoying it at the end of the day, like that's all that matters. It took me until my senior year of high school to win state meet. It took me until my senior year of college to win nationals. It took me until 5 years out to win US nationals. And then it took me another several years to win the Olympics. And so if it doesn't happen immediately, it doesn't mean that it won't happen. And even, with this year, with how much I struggled, it was arguably the worst year I've had, outdoor season I've had across the board. But on that one day at Worlds, it came together. So on any given day, it can be anyone's day, as long as you're still putting in the work and show up. And yeah, I guess that's several things, but
Well, you already kind of addressed what's on your plate the next couple of years. Where do you see yourself 10, 12, 15 years from now, in sports, otherwise?
I mean, I want to have a family. I want to be a mom at some point, not yet. And I know I won't pole vault and be a mom. I would be bad at both if I did that. So
Right.
once I have kids, I'm done pole vaulting. But yeah, I love the idea of being a stay-at-home mom or doing something where I can be with them most of the time. I love public speaking, so I've really enjoyed the opportunities I've gotten with that, and so I could see myself doing more of that. I love coaching, so I definitely could see myself coaching the vault. I also love fashion. I could see myself getting into that realm somehow. I don't know exactly what I want to do when I'm all done. And I think part of that is just I was so focused on accomplishing it that I thought about it, but didn't really, put much energy into figuring out what I wanted to do. And so I'm thankful now because I've done well enough that I have financially given myself a cushion to where I certainly can't live off this for the rest of my life. I'm not an NFL player, but I have time to figure it out. And so I just want to give this everything that I can. And then I am starting to think more about what I would like to do. But I think the first thing that comes to my mind would be the speaking engagements. I like the idea of commentating on meets or something. So
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, I feel like every time I watch a pole vault competition, I'm so disappointed by the announcers. Not every time. There are definitely a few good ones out there, but it's just like, oh, you can't even pronounce our names right.
Right,
like,
right.
Come on.
My brother and I will do that too.
Name? You called it the wrong name, like.
We'll watch a sporting event. We'll be like, this guy has no idea what's going on here. No names, please. But it's like, oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, the lack of preparation is.
But it's like they just don't know the sport
right
at all. And I'm like, for world champs, like
right.
The biggest meet in the world, like you can't get a pole vaulter to help. Like
names are a big thing. If you can't pronounce the names right, that's important.
Get the right name.
Yeah.
There were a couple wrong names.
Oh man.
It was not great.
Well, Katie, this is the time when we interview people where we go through our rapid fire questions. These are just basic questions, favorite this, favorite that. It can be a 1-word answer. It can be a quick phrase. They're real easy.
I'm ready.
They're fun.
They're fun too.
All right. Your favorite movie or TV show you are streaming right now?
Streaming right now. I just watched Bachelor in Paradise, like 3 episodes in a row. So, but we're also watching House of the Dragon. So I do both.
Very nice. Do you have a favorite restaurant in Cleveland when you get back to Northeastern Ohio when you're away?
I have always loved Blue Point, and they actually treated me to a very nice meal after the Olympics, and that was really very kind of them. I said long before that it was one of my favorites. So I'd say Blue Point's probably up there.
You said you eat about 30 minutes before you work out. What about hour and a half? Excuse me, hour and a half. And then what about a match? When do you eat prior to a match, and what is your pregame meal? Is it always the same?
Yes, sort of. I mean, it'll be different now, but I tend to the night before have pasta and chicken of some sort and a little bit of dessert. And then the day of, I eat, an hour and a half before I would start warming up. And so the way our warm-ups work is I warm up just on the track, and then we get an hour on the runway. So I'll eat just like a sandwich or something smaller but filling, where it's again protein, carbs, cheese, and then do my warm up on the track, do my warm up on the runway, just actually vaulting, and then I'll have just like a bar, like a protein bar or something. Sometimes it's beef jerky, sometimes like just something that will keep me continuing to be fueled, because we'll be out there for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours sometimes. So you kind of have to fuel yourself during.
I know you're a big Cleveland sports fan, so I got to know, where were you during the 2016 Cavs title?
I was on a plane. I didn't even get to watch it. And as we were landing, the pilot announced it, and I was like, this is very lackluster. But I was ecstatic for us, but I was flying back from a competition in Boston.
Wow. No Wi-Fi in the plane?
In 2016, I did not buy Wi-Fi ever. So I didn't even know how to begin to stream things on my phone back then. So.
John, I know how that feels, because when the Indians lost in 97, I was on a plane.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was on a plane. I was coming back. I forget where I was, but I was on a plane, and the pilot gets on the plane and did the same thing. And his voice was like this. Like, you couldn't watch it. Yeah. Yeah.
Scott, I never knew that about you. I didn't know that you were on a plane.
I was on a plane. Yeah.
Wow.
Where were you going?
I don't even remember. I probably have the ticket stub somewhere. You know, I save all that crap. What's the favorite country you've competed in? Or favorite countries?
Yeah, that's hard. Because I kind of associate the place with how well I did.
That makes sense. I get that.
So Tokyo was awesome. No, I definitely want to go back to Tokyo. It looked so cool driving through it. We didn't get to explore one iota. But I always loved Paris. Germany has set up some really awesome pole vault competitions. So I would say for pole vault, those are probably my top few.
When you're not training, fans can find you where?
On my couch watching TV. I'm so lazy. You can ask my roommates. It's funny, my roommate will come back. If it's a rest day, she'll come downstairs, she'll go out and do things. A few hours later, come back, and she'll come up and be like, "You haven't moved." I'm like, it's a rest day. I utilize that. So, but otherwise, I really, and this will change now, but I love going out to dinner and like with friends and getting a whole bunch of like appetizers and good drinks, good conversation. I love trying new foods. So I would say either at a restaurant, on my couch, or shopping.
What's the amount of carbs you would take in per day when you'd be training? Did you ever add them up?
No, I'm going to be honest. At one point I counted calories. I could not even begin to give you a number because I don't, again, I'm glad I at one point counted calories, and that now I have a very good idea of how much I'm consuming. And I do think that's important, but I just try to, like I said, keep it balanced, a pretty even amount of protein to carb and that could very well be wrong. So if you're listening to me, I'm not a dietitian. So my sister is and would make sure, like, do not give nutrition advice. But I do like, I make sure I'm getting good carbs because that is the energy source. So I don't cut carbs by any means.
Favorite current Cleveland athlete?
Myles Garrett. He was so nice. He came right up to me when I got to meet the Browns. And maybe that's because I had said, when I spoke to the DBs, I made the comment that like when I went through COVID, I had seen Myles Garrett kind of going through something similar. And it was just in a weird way comforting. Misery loves company, but it was in a weird way nice to know, like, okay, he's one of the best in the world at what he does. And he's dealing with this, like, okay, I'm not alone. And so it just, I don't know if that's why, but he came right up to me at the practice and said he watched, and I was like, you're lying, but thanks. Like, he was so nice.
He might have been watching, you don't know. Hopefully.
That maybe. Either way, it was the nicest thing he could have said, and it just made my life. So.
You talked about how your diet now has to change, but what was, or even what is your go-to cheat meal? Like something that's like, man, this is, if I could pick one of these, what is it?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really consider anything a cheat meal because for the most part, I will eat anything anything in moderation. So mostly what I like is Asian food, which isn't all that bad for you. So like sushi and, Thai food, Indian food, like just a big plate of anything. And so I don't really consider any of those all that bad for me. So I guess if anything, it'd probably be dessert, and I can definitely always put away some dessert.
That's great.
I like good chocolate. But yeah, I guess it would be like I love sushi. So just eating a ton of sushi that would be really high in calories. But it's not really bad for you.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of it too, depending on the type of sushi you get, some lean protein too.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Now, granted, I like the ones that like have fried shrimp and all the sauces, and that maybe aren't so healthy anymore. But I also feel like if you're putting the work in, I try not to stress about it.
Right.
Yeah, got to reward yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, this has been a joy and so much fun to meet you and talk to you about your Olympic journey. This is our first, you are our first Olympic athlete and first gold medalist. I don't know how we can top that on the podcast.
Right. Absolutely. And everybody in Olmsted Falls is certainly proud of you. And Mrs. Gillespie says hi.
Hello, Mrs. Awesome. Yeah.
This is a lot of fun. Thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck in your preparation coming up with the Olympics in a couple of years here. Early congratulations on the wedding.
That's right.
Thank you. No, it was awesome to be here talking to you guys. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. We keep saying, Scott, an Olympic athlete, a gold medalist on the podcast. A real treat right there, talking to Cleveland's own Katie Nageotte. Very impressive woman, on the track field, pole vaulting, and then what she's had to deal with off the field and the adversity that she's overcome, that she continues to persevere through. Pretty much an inspiration to anyone in sports or out of sports.
It's really, you see this, and I'll be honest with you, John, it really annoys me when I see people on social media talking about athletes, whether it's in the Olympics or professional athletes. And they say, well, mental, issue. What are you talking about? And there's a lot of people who poo-poo that, and they don't think it's a real thing. And when you hear the stories like Katie and with other people, and whether it's athletes, whether it's just common people like us that aren't, in professional sports, it can be incredibly debilitating. And to hear her story on how she was able to overcome it and how she still uses those techniques. And how she's learning, how to deal with that is, as I get older, I can appreciate it. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that, she honors her father and her grandfather, with her shoes during a meet. I think that's really, really cool. And no doubt, I think her dad helped her on that quad tightening. Her dad definitely had some part of that.
When she said that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, here I am. I'm in this huge stadium and my quad tightens up. Now what? I mean, can you imagine that?
I can't. I don't know how you would deal with something like that. You work so hard to get to that point and you almost can't even participate, something that's kind of out of your control.
Right.
And sometimes you need some, I don't know, you call it divine intervention or something.
Yeah, something.
For her, that's awesome. And really looking forward to watching her continue her journey.
Absolutely. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. And if you're just at your PC at work or at home and you just want to look at it, go to Press Play Podcast. You can find the entire list of episodes, and I will update my list on my weather blog. It's my weather blog and sports blog. Basically, I've had it for years at Scott's World of Weather. If you do a search there for Sabol Brothers on the Baseline, I'll have all the episode listings and all the links, so you can click on them and you can listen to our episodes, which go back to June of 21. Mm-hmm. Is that right, John? It goes back 18 months or so.
I think we're on episode 32, maybe something like that. We're early 30s here.
Yeah. Good times.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening, everyone. Remember, follow the pod on Apple, Spotify, subscribe there, follow on Twitter at Sabol Brothers, follow me at John_Sabol.
And me, it's Scott Sabol, FOX8.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.